15 years ago, we started Transition Garden. It's a way to use a garden to build community, to build additional strength of local control over what's going on in the outside world. Communities working more closely together, working on food production, which is important, of course, to everyone, and a way to really build that community empowerment. So this is the potato bed that we planted last spring in the ditch. We harvested a few early potatoes out of this bed. Now it's getting into the fall. Plants have died back. You can see they're pretty wilted up here from potato blight. But we're going to start digging. This is always a fun treasure hunt. What I like to do is come in from the side and see what we can find. That way you don't cut up the potatoes. So let's talk about tomato plants. It's getting on towards the late summer, early fall, so they don't have a lot of time left. So what we like to do in the Transition Garden, if you look up here in the top, look at all these small tomatoes. They're just starting to form. The plant's still got a lot of work to do if it's going to fill out these tomato plants. So what we want to do is give it every chance that we can. So what we like to do is the very growing tips. See those flowers? They're not going to do anything. It's just too late in the year. And it's still trying to grow more shoot up at the top. So we're just going to go around, pinch off all of those growing shoots. So the plant now is going to put all of its energy into this fruit instead of trying to grow more shoots. Some beautiful beefsteak tomatoes right here. That's what these vines are on the end. Some of them can get to be quite big. Look at that. Now there's a beauty. We're going to let that sit on the countertop until it's just absolutely dead ripe. Slice it up nice and thick, little olive oil, balsamic, salt and pepper, and that's almost a meal right there. Beautiful. this is for the trim.
Thank you. Okay.
Right at the close to the base there on this one. So you take another onion, you lay it on.
I feel like I'm struggling too much with this.
You
All
braid
right,
your
you-
hair all the time.
I know.
I'll let you tie them together here. So there's still just one there.
Yep.
Then you're going to add one to that one.
Okay. Let's see how this is
See
working.
how it goes. Okay. Then you take the outside one, which in my case has the string in it, and I fold that over, and I add one,
Holy, it's gonna get heavy.
and you just keep going that way. You got the pattern.
All right.
Once you get the pattern down, without adding any more onions, then you take the string and you wrap it around and tuck it in underneath like a cinch,
All right.
and then, so there you
Cool.
go. There you go.
Very
Not
pretty.
bad, not bad.
Okay. So today what I'm going to do is can up some tomatoes that I had frozen in the freezer from last year. And what I started with is, this is a pressure cooker canner, so it takes a long time to get the water up to temperature. So I've got this boiling right now to get it warm, because it has to be boiling to put the cans in. And while that's going, I'm going to prep everything else. I've also got my jars here. So these are sterilized jars ready to be canned. I'm going to start ladling these tomatoes into the jars, and what I have here is I separated the yellow tomatoes from the red tomatoes, and I like to add a little bit of salt too. You don't necessarily have to, but I put a little bit in. So what I'm going to do is start by adding my lemon juice to my jars. And the canned tomatoes are great too, because I use them for soups, for sauces, quick meal, just macaroni and tomatoes if I'm on the run. So I'll start with the yellow ones. So these are really nice. And that's the fun thing about heirlooms, is you can have, yellow, orange, red. There's even varieties that stay green, so you can have green canned tomatoes. They don't look actually as nice, the green ones, but the yellow and the red are really pretty. That's perfect. And now that these are good and warm, that rubber seal is going to be nice and sticky, so that when I put it on top, it'll create a good seal.
Garden grows, garden grows, garden grows.
But I'll put the lid on to get that start getting that back up to temperature.
And I know you love me, and I know you care, and I know as the sun does shine and the wind does blow and the leaves do fall and the streams they flow, I know our
There.
So Steve, here you are, the proud owner of a root cellar.
Yeah.
Yeah, first in the neighborhood. As far
Well, maybe the first new one in the neighborhood. I would dare say that probably if you checked around the neighborhood, you'd find some of these old ones that were
Really?
built, in the early 1900s, even late 1800s, because there was a time when everybody had a root cellar. It was just, that's how you stored all your root crops for the winter. This was like the lifeblood for the winter, is the cabbage and the salted fish would probably be stored in there, and who knows what else. But it's built out of concrete blocks. There is a poured concrete footing under that, and then it's just stacked with concrete blocks. It was built into the hillside. You can kind of see the hillside was not huge. It was just basically an embankment.
Mm-hmm.
So then once it was built, then I brought dirt, and this has all been, like manure and straw and everything from the horse farm next door, piled in here and piled up top on the sides, and, just throw a bunch of seeds and stuff in there, and just let it sort of grow wild, and that forms more insulation across the top and around the sides. And
So Steve, why did you build a root cellar?
the main reason, of course, is to do it to be able to store all these root crops, and to be able to do it without any consumption of energy. It's a totally natural, offline, off-grid approach. I think also just there's something about a sustainable technology like this that just says you just want to do it to kind of prove that it can be done, and it's not that it's not that difficult, and that you could actually show it to somebody and say, look, you could do this. And you want to look inside?
Let's look inside.
All right, let's do it. So see, it's all cement block construction. The door is just framed in here.
Uh-huh.
So the whole unit is basically only 6 by 6. It's essentially a square, and in fact the top is only 6 feet as well, and it has a gravel bottom. That's intentional so that you can actually get more humidity and moisture coming up from the ground. There's no reason to seal off the bottom. And so then we just put in various shelving, and we've got some crates and stuff here for when we start putting stuff in. Some of the stuff you just put in plain, like potatoes, often just put on the racks here. Some of the things like leeks I was talking about, for example, if you put some soil or sand in there and keep them sort of hunkered into that, they do much better. As well, things like beets and turnips, again, if they're buried in sand, they'll maintain that moisture and just be preserved much better. We always keep track of the temperature and the humidity, just to keep an eye on things there. And like I was saying, you want to stay above freezing. So if you can keep it where you're around 2 or 3 degrees, that's ideal. Obviously, you have to wait till you get into the dead of winter before it's going to hit that kind of temperature. And the humidity, you just want to see it. You want to see it way up, and it'll generally stay up that high. So there is a vent here that I installed, and if you look from the outside, you'll see basically a pipe going up through the ground. So it's venting, exhausting there, and I have a small intake just in the door, and it's just literally just a very basic slider vent. You can adjust, you kind of see how things go and adjust that according to the amount of air you want coming in, just to keep a little bit of circulation passing through. We wouldn't actually start putting things in here until the cold weather comes, into the late fall, and start harvesting, those root crops and potatoes and such. You can just start bringing them in. You won't reach the temperatures that you want for the winter until much later, obviously, when the temperature outside gets low. But it would stay low enough and steady enough that it would be fine to start bringing stuff in, even mid to late October, November, and things will be fine in here until it gets that cold. The other thing is, even if you're not growing all this stuff, if you are shopping at a farmer's market and you can get, or go to a farmer and you want to get a big keg of apples or a bunch of big bag of potatoes or whatever, then you could buy them, at that quantity and store them in here and have them all winter long, have access to them. I think one thing I was mentioning earlier about the size is that it could certainly be a community project. I had never done this kind of work before. I'd never done cement blocks. I figured out how to do it. A number of people could jump in on a project like this and make it a community project that a whole bunch of families could use. And in some ways it'd be a return to the old practices, because that's what people did. They figured out ways to store food. That's how the root cellar originated. It comes from ancient times, for communities to be able to do this, to ensure the food through the winter. And so here's a modern version of it, but it's basically just the same thing.
And I know you love me, and I know you care. And I know as the sun does shine and the wind does blow and the leaves do fall and the streams they flow,